In this instance, what we're going to be fitting is a magnetic arrow rest, which looks like this. Now, by magnetic, it doesn't mean that it just sticks to the bow of its own accord. It is a sticky back arrow rest. The magnet is actually down here. And what it does, if I just hold that up, this little arm is on a magnet. So if I push it in, the magnet pulls it back out again. Right? And this is so that as the arrow passes over it, it flattens itself against the bow and allows the arrow to leave the bow with the minimum amount of interference from the arrow rest. The arrow rest works along with one of these things. This is a pressure button. That we'll be showing you how to fit that. It does two things. First of all, it lets you set up your center shot, which we'll come on to. It also helps straighten out your arrow. Okay, so when an arrow leaves the bow, the first thing it wants to do is that, because it's had this force exerted on the back of it, and the first thing it wants to do is bend. What a pressure button does is it tries to push back against that. So on the end of it here, this section here is actually a little piston. Right, inside here is a spring, which you can adjust the tension of by turning this little screw at the back of it. So this little spring is trying to absorb that energy and push back against the arrow so that the arrow, when it's leaving your bow, is oscillating as little as possible. Because the more it wobbles, then the less accurate it's going to be. So when this is actually positioned in the bow, you want it so that, if I just hold this up, the arrow is sitting dead center. You can see that it sits dead center against the button. So you don't want the button sitting up on the top edge or the bottom edge. You want it sitting in the middle here. So we have to then ensure that when the arrow rest is in position, you'll see there's a hole in it here. So the button will emerge through this hole when it's on. So it will sit like this. Yeah. So we've got to make sure that that comes through so that when it's sitting against the arrow, we've got it sitting at the middle of the curve of the arrow, not to the top and not to the bottom. Okay, so I've now got you on the little mini tripod so you can get a better look at this. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that this area here is actually clean, dust free. I've already given this a wipe down with some methylated spirits just to make sure there's nothing stuck there. So I've already screwed this button through from the back so that I can see where this needs to be relative to it, so that when I put the arrow on, it's going to be sitting, remember, with the button against it in the middle. So first thing to do if you've got an arrow rest is just make sure that it is actually going to sit where you need it to, and that it's not sticking out the back here or it's sticking into a hole here, because a lot of times when you order stuff up, particularly if you've got it from different places or from, let's say, a less reputable dealer, they might just throw a kit together and it won't be ideal and it won't be compatible. So you want to stick this on so that the arrow rest here is level. So that's the moving part here. So all we do is we remove the self-adhesive backing. I usually just hold it with this bit to give me a bit more. Sorry you can't quite see me placing this, but I just need to get this right. So initially all I'll do is just sit it in position. Right. I could do it going up a little bit. Okay, so that's looking pretty level. The button's going to come through at the right bit. I can see I've got no overlaps off the sides or anything like that. So all I do then is just press it down. And that's that positioned. Okay, next thing I need to do is put my knock points on. So we need 2 of these. Right, and they're little brass knocks. So what I need to do with these, if you look at the end of an arrow, you'll see that the knock actually tapers. It's not the same diameter as the arrow. So what we want to do is put our nocks onto the string so that when the arrow is sitting in position, that it sits level. You don't want it, when you release it, you don't want the arrow coming at an angle and bouncing off, nor do you want it at an angle going up the way, because it just won't fly properly. So to get the level, on here we've got some markings at the back here which shows me the baseline for here. Now I'm going to want to put my lower nock slightly higher because of the taper on the nock of the arrow. Sorry, they're both called nocks. So what we do is we clip this onto the string. We're then going to move it down until it just touches the arrow rest. Yeah, so just got that contact there. Right, we're then going to want to put our lower nock on. So I usually just put these on a flat surface and pick them up with the pliers. That way I know that the nock is flush with that edge of the pliers. So that when I position it, I know where the nock is. So I'm going to position that against that first notch up. Okay, so I squeeze it enough that it will hold it onto the string, but not so tight as it's going to be its final position, in case I want to adjust it very slightly. Okay, I can then take this off, get my arrow, attach it to the string above the nock that I've just attached, get my other nock, and again I've got it positioned flat against the surface, and this time I'm going to put it up against the edge of the arrow nock and just squeeze that on slightly. Okay, and then I can take my arrow out of the way. Now normally what I would do is I'd pick this up and I'd eyeball it with the arrow in position. I'd take it vertical and eyeball it and make sure that that's going to be straight, but I've done this a few times so I know it will be. So at this point I can then just turn the string as I'm doing this and just make sure that the nock is fully secured, and that's the nock point done.